Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock, and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock on Saturday, and for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI on Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and now in 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So we're on 4 different stations now. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay, and behind the big board is our producer, Greg Held. Hey, Clay, that was a great show last week with Tom Del Bacchio from the California Republican Party.
You know, Marty, you do a great job on the guests that you bring into the studio, and today we've even got a fantastic guest that we've had on before.
Yes, we do, but before we talk about our guest real quickly, I want to mention we also had Ralph Reed on last week, but next week we have Henry Buskin, who just wrote a biography on Johnny Carson. He was Johnny Carson's attorney, and we also have George Will coming in next week.
Again? George is coming back?
George Will, yep. But today we've got one of my favorite guests, somebody unfortunately I was hoping would be part of a Romney administration today when we talked to him, but he's not. Fox commentator on Middle Eastern affairs and the author of a great book, The Coming Revolution, Dr. Walid Phares. Dr. Phares, welcome back to Taking Care of Business.
Thank you so much for having me, gentlemen.
I just wish we were talking to you as part of a new administration today.
Well, hopefully 2016.
There you go.
Thank you again for your trust and for the support you gave me before.
Well, I think really your voice is really needed desperately in the White House right now, and unfortunately I don't think there's anybody like you there.
Well, we're trying our best. I do advise many members of Congress and European Parliament. I, of course, still engage with, executive officials here in the administration in as much as we can to help them figure out what's happening in the region and what is the best policy to respond to those challenges.
Sure. Now, are you still, you were an advisor to the anti-terrorism committee in the U.S. House. Are you still in that role?
Yes, it's still there. The caucus will have to be reorganized soon, and of course the transatlantic legislative group that includes members of the EU, European Parliament, I must say, and the congressional committees is also on its way to be reorganized. So yes, we're still in that position, and I hope that through seminars with lawmakers, especially this new Congress, we'll be able to help both Congress and hopefully whatever we can do for the executive as well to take advantage of that.
And we caught you on a very busy day. I noticed something on Facebook. When you're done with us, you're going to be talking to BBC. Is it BBC Arabic?
Yes, BBC Arabic TV is one of the largest, as a matter of fact, in the region, after Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya. And we will be talking about the developments with regard to Iran, with regard to Syria. These are two very important issues. Syria is a drama, as you know. Now we have the new numbers of the victims. 70,000 people have been killed in that civil war. And, of course, we're going to cover the developments in Egypt as well.
Is the United States supplying weapons to Syrian rebels?
Well, officially, we are not. Unofficially, there probably is a coordination with other states such as Turkey, Qatar, and maybe other countries to send weapons to the opposition. We have not made that decision. Actually, the administration did not make the decision.
So, Dr. Phares, you were saying the administration isn't sanctioning this in Syria, but what should we be doing in Syria?
Well, the president in the State of the Union address said we're going to continue to put pressure on Assad, and he said we're going to be engaging with the opposition. Yes, that's the right direction, but that's too abstract in the sense that in 2011 was the ideal moment. See, if you don't take advantage of the windows of opportunities, then you're going to wait even longer. In 2011, we were in Iraq. So the regime was surrounded. We were in Iraq, the Jordanians in the south, the Turks in the north, Sixth Fleet in the west of Syria. Unfortunately, nothing was done in 11 because we were doing Libya and because of other reasons. So came 12, we had presidential campaigns. No one could do anything serious. But meanwhile, 50,000 people have been killed. Now we are in 13. The price is much higher, and I'm going to explain quickly why. Any engagement against the Syrian regime with military force, as in Libya, is going to be an engagement against 4 regimes. It's going to be the Assad regime, the Iranian regime, their allies, Iraqi politicians who are pro-Assad, and Hezbollah in Lebanon. So for the administration to engage in a forceful crumbling, if you wish, of Assad, it would need a decision that has to do with Iran. That decision is not available right now. So what can the U.S. do at this point in time is to work with the parts of the opposition that are secular, that are not influenced by jihadist, Salafist, or Al-Qaeda, and at the same time work with their partners, Europeans and other Arabs, to convince the Russians that Assad should go and there should be a national unity cabinet. Does that architecture exist now in Washington? I don't see it so far. It may, but I don't see it.
Our guest by phone, Dr. Walid Phares, Fox commentator and author of The Coming Revolution. Dr. Phares, you made a comment about the administration being abstract when it came to Syria. They seem to be abstract when it comes to the Middle East. There's nothing firm here, and it's a little frightening. He made a comment the other night in the State of the Union address about Al-Qaeda being a shadow of its former self. I don't know what he's smoking, but I don't see that. Do you? Is Al-Qaeda smaller than it was, say, 4 years ago when he first took office?
Actually, now the say in Washington among analysts is, the statement made by the administration about Al-Qaeda, to understand reality, reverse it 100% or 180%. Then you'll get your answer. Al-Qaeda today, by sheer size, is 10 times what Al-Qaeda was 3, 4, 5 years ago. Yes, indeed, we did a surge in Iraq. We were successful, and then we quit Iraq without enabling the Iraqis. So what's happening now? Al-Qaeda's coming back. We have done surges in Afghanistan. I mean, our military are always doing the right thing, thankfully. We have pushed back against Taliban and Al-Qaeda, but then we are now cutting a deal with the Taliban to withdraw from Afghanistan, so Al-Qaeda will be back. Yes, Al-Qaeda today is much bigger. It is in Yemen. It is in Somalia. And we've seen it now. It's in Mali. It seized half of the country, and the French had to go, because had southern Mali collapsed, then Al-Qaeda and the jihadists would have been all over huge area of Africa, the Sahel. Waziristan and Pakistan would be 1/50th of what the land mass would be for Al-Qaeda in Africa. So bottom line is that Al-Qaeda is bigger. And the reason for why it is bigger is that the administration solely relied on taking out leadership. Leadership and Al-Qaeda are not the most important thing. It's the ideology. And this is the problem in Washington. There is a policy now that does not recognize the existence of an ideology for a variety of reasons. And if you can't confront this ideology, meaning the madrasas, the petrodollars funding those madrasas, we cannot do anything with the pools that Al-Qaeda is recruiting from. That's the problem. And you're right. There is also an abstract answer on Al-Qaeda as well.
Doctor, are you familiar with Brigitte Gabriel, the founder of Act for America, and her fight against the Muslim takeover of the United States?
I'm familiar with Brigitte's books. I've read them. I've been to conferences where she spoke. I am familiar with her work and with her organization, of course.
And what's your opinion?
Well, Brigitte has been trying for years to raise the issue of the jihadi threat in general terms, and of course her own story out of Lebanon and how Hezbollah was trying to go after her parents and villages. All that is very important in her testimony.
I find it extremely interesting, and she is really a motivating individual.
Brigitte is known to be a great speaker, and she has been able to create out of nothing an organization, a grassroots organization for somebody who has emigrated from overseas to be able to to attract thousands and thousands of members who are American citizens. It's just very, very successful what she's done on the organizational level.
Dr. Phares, going back to the speech the other night, a comment that the president made, he said, our forces are taking a support role in Afghanistan and they'll be home by 2014. I'm reminded of a comment, and it may have been in one of your books, or it may have been something Gary Bernson said on the show when he was the CIA director. He said there was a gentleman talking to a Afghan warlord, and the Afghan warlord said, "You have all the watches, we have all the time," and which seems very appropriate. All they have to do is wait us out. It's the same strategy the Viet Cong used in Vietnam.
Exactly.
It makes no sense to me that we're telegraphing to them exactly when we're leaving, and they can just wait us out. What do you think about that comment?
Well, that already in 2006, that was under the Bush administration, 2006, 2007, and 2008. I have addressed several committees and anti-terrorism caucus at the U.S. House, and Congress in general, and senators about the long-term win in Afghanistan. And I have argued, and even in my books, as you just mentioned, not just The Coming Revolution, the latest one, but previous books, Future Jihad, Terror Strategies Against America. And the most important book in my sense that I have produced with regard to the fight against Al-Qaeda on the battlefield is titled The Confrontation, Winning the War Against Future Jihad, in which I've argued, if we don't win the war of ideas, if we are not helping the Afghani themselves, not just in the fight as, military-wise or kinetic-wise, as we say, but to make sure that there is a younger generation that would grow and resist the Taliban. If you don't have that Afghan resistance embedded in the society, it's not going to work. And my argument has been, for a few years now, we entered Afghanistan in 2001. The kids who were 10 years old are now 21, 22, 20, depending on the ages. And those kids are now the soldiers and the teachers and the fathers maybe, and etc. What have we done over the past 10 years, and specifically the last 4 to 5 years, to enable the Afghan society to become strongly anti-jihadists? That's the point. Have we worked with women in Afghanistan? Have we worked with teachers? We did a lot of build-up. And the worst now is that everything we've done, even if it was not very successful, could be a ground for better. But now we are going to leave Afghanistan, giving the date, as you just said, to the Taliban, who are waiting out there. And worse, we are probably going to be talking to them. So if you are the Taliban, and you're given a date, and you are told, look, we're going to settle with you, we're going to fight you till 14, but after 14, we'll settle with you, this is not serious strategy.
No, it's silly. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about Iran and Egypt. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.